All right. Paul only slightly hinted at the fact that this is interactive. This is mandatory interactive. So we're going to have to use the chat quite heavily because the way that this works is it is, in fact, a choose your own adventure. And you choose your own adventure. So I designed this as a way to kind of bring the tabletop exercises into a group. So the advantage of a tabletop, right, is we get to go through an incident, a story, something, and everybody kind of talks around it. But that doesn't work so well when we work at different organizations. There's a manifold of you out there. I don't even know how many are on this webinar. And so with the hard-coded choices, it makes it easier to follow along. Hi, this is me. I assume all of you know me. All right. So like I said, hard-coded choices, you don't have to be technical. For those of you who have never done a NERC SIP incident response, no problem. We got you. That's the reason that I built it this way. So whether you are an expert or whether you're a beginner, you can participate. We're going to go by democracy. So that's part of how we're going to use the chat is you're going to vote on those choices. And that's what we do. You can ask questions. Discussion is encouraged. I don't know if y'all's audio is enabled or if I can only hear. You are prepared, Zach. I promise you. Your gentle unicorn will guide you to the rainbows and the lollipops and kittens. So, is anyone able to come off audio, or just as Zach demonstrated here, is we can only do it over chat? It appears we only have chat. Okay, so questions and everything will have to be in chat. All right, you ready? It's a rhetorical question. You don't have a choice. You're ready. You're in the incident. Incidents happen whether you're ready or not. Cast Fireball works 50% of the time. Okay. It's 4:45 p.m. in the office on a Friday, almost time for the weekend. Your mind turns to your plans. Let's be honest. It's mostly about catching up on sleep with nothing to do. But here's hoping there's no incidents over the weekend, because doesn't it always feel like they time them for the weekends? So this is your chance to practice. The phone rings. Do you answer it? So throw in there, sobriety is not a question, Zach. It's not a part of the scenario. You are on the job. You are sober. You're in an operations center. So vote yes or no if you want to answer the phone. Jason Armstrong showing that he is a mediocre employee with SCYTHE, yes. So we have a little bit of attitude with answering the phone. Begrudgingly. All right. So I'm seeing the trend of yes. So while we are not necessarily the most thrilled and high morale employees, we are on the clock and we do our job. So, hello? A clearly disguised voice speaks.
Are you awake?
Oh, what?
Find anything strange today?
Jane from marketing, is that you pranking me again? I'm not going to fall for that one.
Did you pick up your daughter from school today?
I don't have kids.
Yeah, sorry. I just couldn't resist messing with you. Anyway, you've been hacked. Send 10 Bitcoins to the following wallet. Click. Your coworker, Ted, is looking at you. Your face must have given away that the call wasn't good. And so it begins. All right, so here we are. We've had a phone call. Your mind begins to race. As the current on-site lead for the company's incident management process, the next step is up to you. And while you have done a tabletop in the past year, you never did quite get around to documenting the process, because more important things sure would be convenient to have that now. So we already know we don't have a documented incident response plan. We've got some call to indicate something. What do we do, folks? We're in the operations center. Is this a real thing? Do we have data? Should we start making some calls? Who do we notify? Ted stares at you, the audience, waiting. So let's start throwing some ideas into the chat. What do you want to do, folks? From these choices, you can only pick from the choices. So don't try to throw something that's not a choice. What do you want to do and why? So Daniel asked the question, can we choose more than one? First of all, this is a game. So you have to go in order. And the reason that I like the game, the fact that there's serial choices, is if you look in the real world, there's actually a seriality of prioritization in the execution of incident response as well. So we're forcing it to go in order. You can only pick one thing. So far, we have a lot of sim log analysis. Jose says, call the CISO. Can't divide and conquer. Got to pick one. So far, sim log analysis seems to be the primary, with the call the CISO as an option. The CISO has no plans, and I do. Well, you can call the CISO and find out what their plans are.
Aha. Tim is on to our first point here, right? I would call the CISO, but without any info, what would you tell him or her? Exactly. Right. So this is part of one of these choices is not a good choice because we don't actually have data supporting an incident right now. Any call we make to somebody is pretty much going to be, we heard something, but we don't know. So the votes for the SIM seems to have it. The reason you wouldn't call the CISO is you actually don't have enough data to call the CISO yet. So SIM log analysis. A SIM collects, analyzes, and reports on log data from various networks, applications, servers, and endpoints. This is a good place to start. You look through the logs and alerts. Your SIM claims that its machine learning can automatically correlate events to identify anomalous behavior. It's an AI joke. There are a lot of endpoint logs, but it doesn't seem to be receiving the firewall or outbound proxy logs. How much data are we missing? How long has this been the case? And why didn't anyone notice before? If only there was some way to continuously assess and identify these kinds of things. So what do we want to do? So we went to the SIM. Turns out we're missing some data there. Firewall and outbound proxy logs are missing. This is not uncommon. The security is a constant fight against gravity. Whatever we put in place, things change and things break. Check endpoints. What else? Maybe grab some tissues. Why are we grabbing tissues, Daniel? Is that for management or for us? Someone's getting a talking to from the CISO. Don't forget the Red Bull. Well, it's still only late afternoon. We don't need the Red Bull until usually around 1 a.m. Ah, the lack of firewall logs. Okay, so let's talk about this. What would we talk to the CISO about with the lack of firewall logs? And while we're waiting for that response, right now, the overall group decision is to check the endpoint logs. Does anybody have anything else they want to add to that? Perhaps the CISO can get engineering or ops to pull local copies of the firewall logs. It's a possibility. If your team doesn't have the full technical story, it'll be difficult to assess what, if any, damage occurred and how, right? Which is right now we're in the middle of detection. We don't have confirmation of an incident. We do know that we're missing some data because we do have some of the missing logs. Okay, so let's check the endpoint logs. The Unicorn Company is a large multinational company. That is a lot of endpoints to look through. And while we're not sure what we're looking for yet. So going directly from the SIM down to endpoints, we didn't have any endpoints that pointed us to anything particular. So just looking at a serial list is too long. So in this case, Ted's like, wait a second. All right, we don't have anything to narrow this down. We're looking at a long list of things. We're not even sure what we're looking for because we don't have an indicator or compromise to threat hunt with. So we give it a shot for about half an hour, and then Ted groans. Can we check the firewall logs? Maybe we can correlate suspicious outbound traffic there. Now, remember, our SIM didn't have the logs there, but there is a way that we could go directly to and pull the firewall details themselves. So check the firewall logs or do something else first. All right. All right, looks like that's the vote. So you check the firewall logs, and sure enough, there are a few suspicious outbound connections, and several computers are beaconing out to them. Let's check which machines. There are 8 machines that reached out. And wait, am I on the wrong game? I might have put you in the wrong game. I did. Sorry, we opened the wrong game. I was about to say that didn't feel right because we're actually doing an OT game. That was my IT game. So you can see this is an OT game. I do want to give credit to Ian Anderson, who's currently the CISO over at OG&E, Jason Christopher, who works at Energy Impact Partners, and Jason Nations, who's a field CISO at Stream Security, for helping me put this game together. So as quickly, all right. So sorry, I started you on the wrong game there. What you got was originally the call, as opposed to it being an outsider, is Jean from the electric control room. She's seeing an HMI that's acting funny, and Gen and power distribution connections keep dropping out. So from there, what did we do? Okay, so sorry, we're gonna have different choices here. I apologize, I messed you up. So we now have Gene, who's on the engineering floor, call us up. And HMI is acting wonky. We see some Gen and PDU connections dropping out. What do you want to do? And forgive your humble narrator for playing the different game. So triaging the human machine interface, HMI, power cycle. So the difference between triaging, we're doing forensics check. Power cycle means turn it off and on, right? So right now we have triage ahead of power cycle by 1 vote. 2 votes. Checking change logs. Daniel notes, would not recommend power cycling prior to confirming with the operations team. So the advantage you have is you have Jean, who works on the operations team. She is the one you would coordinate with, because you're right. IT does not just get to go in there and turn things off. Jack also notes, if I power cycle, I can lose information. So there is a balance here of what I can forensically gather from this HMI versus restoring functionality. Okay, so we have three options here that the teams have recommended. So we have triage, we have power cycle, and we have checking the change logs. So let's vote real quick. Who votes for triage? Just throw in a thumbs up. Just throw a thumbs up in the chat for voting for triage. One, two, three. Some of you can do emojis. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so who wants to do power cycle the HMI now? So I've got 7 votes for triaging the HMI. And then who wants to do check change logs? All right, I think the triage has it. Gene, can you plug in an engineering workstation and see if we can triage this directly? Wilco. I see in the change logs that there was an update applied this morning. Gary from Mandatory OT Support Vendor Trademark was here on schedule. She puts you on hold to go check with Devin. There was a scheduled called upgrade. There's a scheduled upgrade early this morning. Nothing out of the ordinary from my view. Guy came in, plugged in his laptop, and was done. Might be something or it might be nothing. Ted grabs you as you hang up with Gene. Hey, I just noticed that an asset we haven't seen on IT before was sending a decent amount of web traffic via the Wi-Fi network. Picked it up on our perimeter IT firewall. Looks like one of our control engineering laptops. So for those of you who aren't aware, NERC SIP is how we govern incident response. So we now have proof of an anomalous activity. So we have a suspicious event. We do not have proof yet of a malicious act. And so this is now 0086, which is the NERC guidelines on incident response. So just something to keep in mind as we go through this. So there was your Dungeon Master fourth wall break. So Ted grabs you. Hey, I just noticed that an asset that we haven't seen on IT before just beaconed out, picked up on our perimeter IT firewall, looks like one of our control engineering laptops. So what should we do? So we have an HMI acting wonky. We now have suspicious traffic that's coming from that same segment from a control engineering workstation. And we know that there was a third-party applied upgrade this morning. Quarantine the control engineering. Quarantine. Okay, why do we want to quarantine? check the OT firewall, or inspect the workstation. Quarantine to stop access, since it's not essential for the time being. We don't actually know whether it's essential or not. Inspect the workstation. All right. So we don't have confirmation of breach yet. Keep that in mind, right? We have anomalous activity. We have suspicious activity, but we do not have proof of anything yet. So our three options that the group has selected here. Who votes for quarantine? Okay, I see 3 votes for quarantine, 4, 5, 6. All right. 7, 8. Who votes for checking the OT firewall logs? Luke, you raised your hand. Unfortunately, I can't call on you because all I can do is have you talk in chat. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, don't raise your hand for that. I need the votes in the chat. So 1 vote for checking the OT firewall. And then who wants to inspect the workstation directly? Any votes for that? 1 vote for that. You can only inspect 1 at a time. Again, 1 action at a time, folks. So inspect the firewall or inspect the workstation first. Okay, OT firewall logs. Firewall. All right. Quarantine has the most votes. So quarantining is a preventative measure, as the audience was saying. Well, preventative to further issues. A host isolating a host, threats will be unable to access the internet or network, restricting command and control and minimizing impact by preventing any further spread or exfiltration. So what are you going to quarantine? Do we quarantine the HMI or the workstation? Which do you want to quarantine? Three for workstation. Up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for workstation, 1 for HMI. And it looks like the workstation has the most votes. All right. So as we covered, this is a preventative measure. The workstation has already been disconnected, but for safe measure, you have someone from IT take it from the floor holding on to something else. Do you want to inspect the workstation or do something else? So we've pulled it off the floor. So 2 for something else, 1 for inspect. 3 for something else, inspect. So yeah, so Daniel, you can presume that your inspection is going to be in a safe area. So what Daniel's noting here, but don't plug it into the IT network, right? We have a machine that's exhibiting suspicious behavior. Even inspecting it, we want to make sure that we're not reintroducing infection elsewhere by looking at it. I will also note, for those of you who think that sandboxes are strong, I will tell you from an adversary perspective, sandboxes are very easy to identify and break out of. So don't consider that an automatically safe approach. So it looks like something else has the most votes. So let's do something else. What do we want to do? We've already quarantined. We've removed the workstation. So Gordon notes, if you turn off a machine, you lose memory. So for a lot of malware, they run fileless. They run only in memory, which means anything that is being done will be lost. So we have quarantined the IT, excuse me, we have quarantined the engineering workstation and taken it off the floor. What else do we want to do? Check for firewall logs. Okay. Ted, please go pull the OT firewalls L at that segment in the DMZ. You got it. But what am I looking for? So what are we looking for? What do we think we're going to find? How do we tell Ted to threat hunt here? What would we want to look for based on what we know? Odd activity, but what exactly? Okay, folks, saying anomalies and anomalous activity isn't specific, right? We know it's anomalous. How would that look? Like what exactly, right? So Zach notes unauthorized connections. So it's unlikely that we would see that at the perimeter firewall, but maybe something inside accessing in our level 3.5 shared service layer. We could see something trying to access file servers or servers that it doesn't have permissions to. Outbound communication to C2 and weirdly newly seen IPs. So that's also kind of hard to do because do we know the baseline of the kind of IP traffic that we normally look at? And then how would I look for anything that's outside of that? So that is kind of where we want to go, but that's hard to do. Logs that are different from baseline traffic. Again, that's easy to say, hard to do. Communication to enterprise applications. So that would be, again, that example of accessing shared service logs. Connections to suspicious sites. So as Daniel's noting here, perhaps we see something to a strange domain that sticks out. That could be something we see. So the last session on the system, we should see that logged at the firewall. Possibly encrypted traffic. It depends on which protocol was being used. You're not going to see the executable at the firewall that was run on the HMI. That would be a local log on the HMI itself. Yep. So Jason notes a good point here. We can time box it to when the vendor came on site, right? So here's a good example, right? Maybe we don't have all of the quantitative data of what we're looking for, but we do have a temporal perspective because we know that this behavior started at this morning when we looked at our change logs and something happened with a vendor. So we can time box the period of time we're looking at. So we're not just looking at all logs. So that's a really good addition, Jason. Gordon notes, what about an insider attack? There's the possibility based on the data we have so far and the fact that this originated inside out. This could have been an insider attack. So that's possible. Okay, so now we got some ideas cooking. So you work in IT, so you're not really sure what baseline traffic in OT looks like. Still working through that classic IT OT convergence plan. And this is, again, this is where everyone was throwing that thing out, look for these things. But when you start to break down, what does that actually look like? It's a harder problem, particularly on the outside. We don't always know the normalization and the baseline traffic that we're seeing in this environment because we don't typically monitor it. And so this is one of the challenges you have in IT when you're coming into OT is you don't know what those baselines are. And so it can be difficult to do a response looking at that. So Jean has her hands full at the moment, so it's not really the time there either. Hey, so we weren't able to quite find anything out from looking at the OT firewalls. What's something else we can look at? It's important to note which protocols and ports are being used. Exactly. That's also going to be helpful. So what else can we do here? So we've quarantined the workstation. Check the internal monitoring tool. Okay. All right. So as we just covered that, coincidentally, we're using the one from Dragos. As we talked about, we talked about the things we want to look for, but we don't see anything. So that didn't turn up anything. What else can we do? Check the IT firewall logs. We can have a word with the vendor, contact the vendor. Okay. So talk to the vendor or check IT firewall logs. I think that's about the lowly two things we haven't done yet. So which do we want to do? We got 50-50 right now in our votes. Vendor's now ahead, 3-2, 3-3, 4-4. We're evenly split on vendor versus firewall. Anna just pushed us over with the vendor 5-4. Going once, going twice, 3 times. Anna is the final vote for the vendor. So Jean calls Gary's cell phone. He was the site engineer that was at your plant this morning applying the update. Her call goes to voicemail. Hey, Gary, this is Jean. Please give me a call back when you get a chance. I'm guessing he's already on site at another job. So this is, of course, one of the challenges is when these vendors come in and do this, they're scheduled throughout the day. They get in, they get their thing, and they're on to the next site. Just then, Jean's phone rings. It's Gary. What do you want to do? Ask Gary to come back on site or ask Gary to return with his laptop for inspection? Can I go back for a sec to what? Daniel, I don't know what previous slide you're talking about. Bring that laptop back. We can request them to come back on site. Yep. Come back on site. He doesn't need to know about the risk of his machine being reviewed. Relationships are pretty important, folks. All right. Daniel, I can't go back. It's too hard to do all of this at the same time, and we're running out of time. Okay, so it looks like returning with the laptop is the overriding vote. So let's think about this in the real world, right? Gene, ask him if he'll come back on site and bring his laptop for him. Now, if you're a vendor in Gary's shoes, what would you do? Right? Obviously, this is a game, and everybody's just going to pick with what the game is. But like, let's think about this in the real world. Is this something you could actually do? Hard to do. Pradeep, why is it hard to do? Depends on the contract. Gordon for the gold star. Yes. If it is not in the contract, it is not going to happen. And I 100% guarantee you that the contract you have with Gary's company absolutely stipulates you do not get access to his stuff. So as Daniel notes, you can definitely ask, not guaranteed though. Hope is not a strategy. If you do not have it in the contract, the vendors will not do it. And that's what you're going to find here. In fact, you're going to piss him off because he's going to be like, are you kidding me? I'm not giving you my stuff. You're stopping me from doing my job. He says you can call 867-5309 and put in a ticket for him if you want him on site. He's not comfortable handing over his company field laptop and suggests you reach out to his legal department or procurement. No holiday card for Gary. Okay, so the last thing to do here is to check the IT firewall logs, which is the only thing we didn't do. And in doing so, we find, please go pull the IT firewall logs. Let's pull the ones segregating our guest IT Wi-Fi as well. So if you remember, when we got the beaconing out from the workstation, it was going out through the IT perimeter through guest Wi-Fi. So OT firewalls aren't going to see that, whereas the IT firewalls are in fact going to be that perimeter traffic. So in terms of what do we think we find, we see HTTPS traffic. So we have encrypted web traffic here that we resolve to an AWS hosted domain. So while we can't resolve the details behind the header because it's encrypted, it does look suspicious. So we have control engineering going over guest Wi-Fi, HTTPS traffic to an AWS domain. All of that screams anomalous behavior and potentially malicious behavior. This is weird. So first question, why is it HTTPS traffic? Why would the attacker be using HTTPS traffic here? To hide it, to encrypt it. You got it. That is Jenny's number. I'm glad those of you who got my jokes on the 867-5309. So why is it going to an AWS hosted domain? Why would it be doing that? Everything is on AWS. It blends in, right? So if I went directly to .ru, that would look suspicious. AWS gives me an automatic US-based IP and domain. Furthermore, it's going to blend in with the traffic that your company's doing because your company most likely is going to be doing have a lot of cloud assets for different purposes. So from I look US, I get easy tradecraft, and I blend into all the traffic that's in your organization already going to a similar domain. It's a lot harder to see me. And I get all of that for free, right? None of that cost me a lot of work. So while we're doing it, we have an update from Jean. She reports that unit number 3 of 4, the HMI is down. The DCS, distributed control system, and IO still seem to be responding normally, but now we have a real risk. Something really bad is going on. So currently the DCS HMI is down. What do you want to do? So now we have an incident, by the way, folks. Like, this is a real operational hit. Call a CISO, quarantine and restore. Remember, we don't have an IR plan. That was one of the comments up front. It's not documented. No, DC is not domain controller. It's DCS, distributed control system. This is an operational technology environment. So this is where we have power generation and transmission. Call the CISO, quarantine. So CISO is currently, Daniel, I don't understand your question. The DCS is up, the HMI to the DCS is down. The status is right here on the page. Oh, is there?
Got a couple minutes, Bryson.
Oh, bring the DC back up. Sorry. That is, sorry, I couldn't see it with the chat. So we're going to call the CISO. I'll get to that later. Ian answers. He's finished the course. So Ian is your CISO. He's of course playing golf. He's like, hey, good news. You brief him on the situation with the DCS, the HMI. One of the lines is down. There's evidence of threat activity via command and control, credential compromise, and lateral movement. All right, vacation is over. I'm going to contact the MISO Reliability Coordinator and Balancing Authority, which is a NERC requirement. Is this only occurring at one location? This likely couldn't spread to other units at the same location using the means that typical malware or ransomware propagates because of the network segmentation between each DCS. Take down the unit in the safest way possible. Should not be utilized until the DCS can be reviewed further to ensure that we don't create a safety hazard or long-term operational impact. So your CISO is briefed now. He's going to contact regular authorities and he's saying, all right, take it down. Let's go. And that should be DCS. So bring the DCS back up. Sorry, I have a typo there. Sorry for that, Daniel. That was my fault. So call the ops lead, quarantine, or bring it back up. Jack, unfortunately, you cannot get a full copy of this. This is my proprietary story. We only get the ones we go through in the talk.
Coming up on time, Bryson.
Yeah, so we're going to quarantine. You have proof of a compromise. You notified the reliability coordinator per NERC, and now it's time to take back control of your plant. As Ian requested, you conduct a controlled shutdown of the DCS and all elements of the line. Working with the mandatory OT support vendor trademark and your ICS technicians, you begin to implement restoration activities. The system is safely down and on its way to being restored. The estimate is everything will be back up by tomorrow with clean equipment and configurations. It appears that Gary's laptop was infected. The dropper repurposed the control workstation's wireless NIC, which while it was never used, was not disabled. So this is one of the points between a software and hardware disabled appliance to connect out via the guest IT network. From there, it downloaded a command and control capability where the operator was able to use PowerShell for further discovery and compromise. But because of your quick actions, you were able to contain it. So you know how to make the tough decisions, folks. Congratulations. You made it. We all survived. Huzzah.
All right. Thank you very much for that, Bryson. I can say it's a very interesting way. I think that helps folks along through an incident response plan, and certainly the gamification leaves an indelible mark for sure. So like to thank Bryson and his time, and be sure to, if you haven't already, there's the incident response recovering across manufacturing environments with Amit, and the moderator is Jonathan. Thank you very much, everyone, and we'll see you in the next one.